We've got a cracking question from our lovely Heather Waugh up in Scotland. DDS says it's important for leaders to create an environment where employees can offer opinion or criticism without fear of consequence. Alex is a very natural people person who has enough self-confidence to genuinely hear people so he can create this environment. Is this something that can be taught to current MDs or CEOs, etc.? How can people who don't have that produce these results? Cracking question, Heather. Thank you so much for contributing. DDS, over to you.
I would agree that Alex does have self-confidence, and it's a thing that shines from the inside out. I don't know this to be true, but I would imagine this to be partly true, that Alex has worked on that through his life to be able to be at a place where I'm okay, you're okay. And so I do believe that self-confidence is a trainable, acquirable experience, if you want it to be. And it starts there, right? It starts in a place of self-awareness and then moves to a place of self-acceptance and then moves to a place of self-development. And so if you want to build your ability to give and receive feedback, and if that does rest on a platform of self-confidence, which I believe it does as a psychologist, as a psychotherapist, I believe it does. Then the first place, excuse me, excuse me.
Do you have? I feel like I want to pass you a glass of water, but my arms are not long enough.
But it starts with I want to develop my self-confidence.
Yeah. So the will has to be there in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alex, what's your response to Heather's question?
Well, you see, Heather only knows me relatively recently, yeah? So her perception of me as a leader will be different from people who've known me for longer. So I think that I can be me because I bring my full self to work, yeah? So I think I'm a little mini case study myself about how I can be a better leader if I bring my full self to work.
Yeah.
The other issue is that, you know, I'm paid to make stuff better, right? Whether it's punctuality, safety, performance, productivity, efficiency, you know, it's about making stuff better, isn't it? And as DDS has just said, I am committed to me being a better leader. And there've been loads of examples where I've been a terrible leader and had a negative impact on people or organisations. But I've been working on it for a long time, and hopefully I'm trying to get better over time. But also, you know, I surround myself with a really strong team. And the Alex you see, actually a lot of it comes from the people I surround myself with, yeah? So, you know, it's not unusual for someone to say to me, oh, Alex, have you said thank you to those people? You know, I'll give you a list of names. Yeah. These are all the people you need to thank, type thing. And so it's not, you know, teamwork is really important here because we all have, you know, different skills, don't we? And, you know, some people are introverts, some people are extroverts, some people are thinkers, some people are feelers. So part of organisational success is having that really nice mix. So, for example, you said to me today, oh, I've been on the ScotRail website and it talks about equality and inclusion and belonging. And, you know, that's brilliant. Well, I didn't even know that. And while I was having a sandwich, I started looking through the ScotRail website because I already work here. I don't need to. So, Leanne, who's on this call, who looks after EDI for ScotRail, all you've got to do is set people off in the right direction. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And create an environment where people can do their best work.
We're back to the trust thing again, aren't we? We're back to this thing where a leader has built a level of trust within the team, within the team in its biggest sense, to say you are completely empowered to bring your whole self to work, to be the person, the youest you, as DDS refers to in the book, which I think Dr. Seuss also refers to, the youest you that you can be. Bring that to work and love the work you do. Be in flow because you're doing work that's meaningful to you as an individual. You're being allowed to be yourself. And that in itself produces confidence. Because, we kind of see this, I've seen this in my own teeny tiny organisation where people have joined the team and you can see it, it's tangible, it's amazing seeing them just develop and grow and take on more responsibility and have bigger conversations. It's just an absolute joy to see it.
Well, self-efficacy is what Albert Bandura, behavioral psychologist from many moons ago, said is the most important ingredient to self-confidence, right? And self-efficacy can be built through vicarious experiences, i.e. observing other people do something. It can be built through direct experience, i.e. I'm doing something and I'm getting better at it. And it can also be built by other people mirroring back to you praise or recognition. And so all of those things become important in the workplace if we're trying to not only build our own self-confidence, but build the confidence in others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess one more contribution from me before we move on to another question would be that this self-confidence and this growth, there isn't an end game, isn't there? There's no end point. There's no kind of, my goal is to be self-confident and I'm aiming to do that by 2027.
You don't get to graduate from personal growth.
No, I love that. I love that expression. Yeah, absolutely. It is a lifelong learning curve. And I think the more that we have these type of conversations, the quicker it will happen. And we'll have more people feeling better and feeling more confident. But it's a lifelong exercise. Let's have a look at. Sorry, Alex, crack on.
Sorry to interrupt, but can I just pick up this team thing again? So ScotRail has a fantastic apprenticeship program run by a lady called Margaret Mellon, who's a force of nature, and she was telling me on board a train recently, we bumped each other about the latest apprenticeship program and the fact that we were recruiting neurodiverse people. And there was something in the chat about neurodiversity earlier on. Now, I'm not aware that she asked for permission for that. I'm not aware she wrote some big board paper or anything like that. Because it's like, well, why wouldn't you want to recruit neurodiverse people? A, because they've got great talents. And secondly, they're actually part of society. And if you want a workforce that reflects society and your customer base, you need neurodiverse people in it. So that's another example. You just sort of point people off in the right direction and say, that's kind of the direction we're heading. And if it works out, you'll get the credit. And if it doesn't work out, I'll take the blame and just get on with it.
Yeah. This is, by pure coincidence, is our next question. So thank you for leading me nicely into it, Alex. Jenna Clare, thank you, Jenna, for your question. I'll read Jenna's comments first. I see some incredible minds within this industry and think we should be championing that so we get the very best from everyone regardless. But I often see this, neurodiversity, as an area we need to do better as an industry. So Jenna's question: what are the thoughts on neurodiversity as opposed to the usual diversity elements? So DDS, can I pass that question to you in the first instance, and then we'll come back round to Alex to continue.
Neurodiversity, I think, is often, well, there's a couple of things going on. I think it in part relates to what Alex called the invisible diverse identities, but it also, I think there's something, and I'm speaking to this with my licensed psychotherapist hat on. There's a book called the Diagnostic Statistic Manual that is produced by the American Psychiatric Association, that is generally considered to be the world's authority on all of the so-called mental disorders that exist and all of the diagnoses. I take offense slightly to, first of all, the word disorder. And the other thing that I have a very complex relationship with diagnoses. I understand that they are important to some people and enable treatment and medication. And I also understand that diagnosis can be harmful and can pathologize people in very unuseful ways. One of the challenges that I think exists at a world level, at least in kind of the Western world, is that neurodevelopmental disorders such as autism and ADHD exist in the DSM. They are identified as mental disorders, which means they come with the stigma that everything like schizophrenia or bipolar or anxiety or depression come with. And so we don't like to talk about it, particularly as British people. We want to talk about tea and we want to talk about the weather. We don't want to talk about feelings and experiences. And so all of that stuff goes underground, but it's there. It exists. And so as long as we have this stigma that is associated with neurodivergence, I mean, even the word, I know it's the word we use, but neurodivergence is saying that there's something weird and wrong about people that have neurodevelopmental needs that are different to the overrepresented groups in our life.
Yeah.
So I could go on and on about the challenges that exist with this, but it starts for me with the need to destigmatize, just like ScotRail did with the menopause. Like, let's destigmatize this stuff and realize that there are people walking around amongst us that have different neuro needs than many other people.
Are there any, and I appreciate I'm just dumping this on you as a question, are there any best practices that you've seen, DDS, in terms of organisations who have been particularly effective at attracting people into the organisation who think differently?
Well, it really starts with what you shared about ScotRail's website, right? So the first thing that anybody is going to do when they're considering it being employed by an organisation is they're going to look at the website. They might even look at Glassdoor and see what employees are saying about working there. They might ask their friends if they know anyone that works there, and then they might also go on to LinkedIn. So all of these places are your shop window. So it's your opportunity to demonstrate why it is safe for those people to people with different identities and social locations to come and work here. And then you've got to back that up with policy and process that supports individuals. Like there is nothing more disappointing to me as a queer person. Every June, all of these brands slap a rainbow on their logo and go, yay, pride, and try and get the pink pound coming their way. And then you look underneath the bonnet, you pull back the curtain, they have zero policies that support the queer community. They have zero representation of queer people on their boards. They probably don't even have an LGBT person making the decisions about what type of logo and what type of rainbows should be on the logo, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's about first of all having the shop window that is going to attract people, and then having the organizational infrastructure that means when they do get a job in your organization, that they are supported to stay there and to be able to do their job in the most effective way.
Yeah, thank you. Alex, have you got anything to add in terms of the neurodiversity question?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have customers in the rail industry who are neurodiverse. There are neurodiverse people in society, so why wouldn't you want them in your workforce? And actually, we already have neurodiverse people in our workforce. This is about making it a conscious thing. So, you know, people joke about certain professions in the rail industry and says that, you know, they attract a certain type of person. I won't label any of those roles, but you know, if you take a railway timetable, that's about patterns and numbers, right? Some people love patterns and numbers. Sometimes that's a neurodiverse trait. So why don't you go and proactively seek out that skill? Yeah. And I think the other thing is, in the context of ScotRail now being in the public sector, Network Rail having been in the public sector for some time now, we consume vast sums of public subsidy. It's important that we work for the public. If you're neurodiverse, you know, you should be able to have a rewarding career just as someone who isn't, not be left on the sort of scrap heap of society. So, you know, £1 spent with Scotland's Railway should be £1 spent for good. And if that means giving rewarding careers to everybody in society, no matter who you are, where you come from, you know, that is one of our purposes.
Absolutely. Thank you both for that. I'm going to come to a question now, which I think will probably be our last question. But as I said earlier, we've got some cracking questions. We will feed these back as part of our follow-up communication. So if your question hasn't been answered, then please bear with us. But this one feels like a good one to end the Q&A on. It's from Gareth Hynes at First Bus. And Gareth is new to the rail industry. But Gareth's question: I have spoken with some who find it difficult to comprehend that you can truly belong in an organisation. Now, that might be that they have yet to find their organisation, or perhaps they are sceptical that such an emotionally charged behavioural utopia can be achieved. How can we supercharge the formula to deliver this for everyone? Cracking question, Gareth. Thank you. DDS, let's start with you.
That's a bloody marvellous question.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we're dealing with from a societal perspective is the legacy of work and non-work don't meet, right? And so we're often told, you know, keep your dirty linen at home, don't bring your problems to work, leave your emotions at the door. Those are messages that we receive from our parents, and our parents receive from their parents. And those are often messages that we might experience at work as well. When somebody says, well, you know, they're too emotional. I'm like, I nearly swore then. Newsflash. Everyone is emotional. Like, we're human, right? And so I think part of that idea of is that emotional utopia, is it too far out of reach? We've got to break down the idea that people can't bring their full selves to work anyway. And part of that is to do with our social conditioning. And psychologically speaking, it's problematic when we try to split ourselves. When we split ourselves, this is the work me and this is the non-work me. First of all, that takes an inordinate amount of psychological energy to be able to uphold. So it's exhausting for you as an individual. It's also problematic psychologically when we try to divide ourselves into two halves. So it takes work because we're not used to doing it, and because we've been trained and told that we shouldn't do it.
Yeah. That is such a good response. There's so much I want to unpack there, and I can't because I've got an eye on the clock. Alex, do you want to comment on Gareth's question?
I'm not an expert in belonging. DDS is, and if you haven't read his book, I recommend you read it. But for me, belonging is about sort of feeling at home, isn't it? Mm. And when you're at home, you generally might feel comfortable in your surroundings. And I guess the question which is worthwhile asking is, you know, when I entered the office today, did I leave a little bit of me outside, or did I bring all of Alex Hynes to work? And I brought all of Alex Hynes to work, and I think that makes me a better leader. It also makes me a lot happier because I don't have to expend energy on trying to create this difference between the personal Alex Hynes and the professional Alex Hynes. Yeah. And I think that's really important that people like me role model that.
Absolutely, completely agree. There's so much in here, and I could keep talking. As you probably both know, I could keep going for a while yet.